Hello and welcome back to Intimate Encounters. You're here with Samantha
and Adam. And in today's episode, we have an amazing guest with us. Someone who has achieved quite a lot. He's a TEDx speaker running an incredible organization and also has written an updated version of the Kama Sutra.
But he'll be telling you that, or his story about that, in just a minute here. I heard about him through a networking meetup with Salzburg Co-working. I actually said that in the wrong order, but that's okay. And yeah, he agreed to come on the show, and I'm super stoked to hear from him. So I'm just going to pass it over to him now. Sartaj, if you could just tell us a bit about yourself and why you wanted to be on the show.
Sure. So my name is Sartaj Anand. I'm the founder of egomonk, a small media company based out of India. Our goal is to impact a billion people during our lifetime, and we are trying to accelerate the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030.
Very cool. And I noticed that there were a lot of projects related to women, especially in your company. Can you tell us a bit about those projects?
Sure. We've done several projects which support, say, the independent creative spirit of women through, say, poetry. We've also done something to support the marginalized communities such as transgenders, LGBTQ, because India wasn't really open in terms of representation of certain communities and the freedoms that they had. So we felt that if we shone a spotlight on them, more opportunities would reach those communities.
Very cool. So you've been doing this for 8 years, and it sounds like you have seen quite a difference. Can you tell us about some of those differences?
Sure. So when I started out, I would say that India was still pretty patriarchal, and we really went through this crazy modernization phase where women started focusing completely on their professional goals. That became the default for most women. I think there was also a great sexual awakening as well, that where women felt that that is something they could claim now compared to the previous generation that they couldn't. And also in general, we had this landmark LGBTQ rights bill also passed through, which decriminalized homosexuality. So huge changes in the last 8 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
No, wow, that's incredible. That's a massive. I feel like we're from the UK and Canada. It feels like we've undergone a lot of change in the past few years as well. But that's amazing. Yeah. Like so much has happened.
Landmark.
Completely. So, and do you feel that it's spread through the culture, or is there still this mindset of kind of resistance to it?
So it's definitely percolated top down, right? We've noticed that this also has privilege built into this as a conversation, because we've had kings, princes who are gay, public figures who are gay, and that sort of allowed people, right, in other stratas of society to say, okay, this is who I am, it's okay. So we've definitely noticed that top down movement sort of happening.
Great. And with your company, what have you found to be the most effective ways to get this message out and help people?
So for us, two considerations. One is, how do we reach as many people with as tight a cost, right? As a startup, we have to focus on that as well. And digital has really proven that. So we've used everything from Facebook, Telegram, WhatsApp, any digital channel to reach folks. And that's really worked out well. I would say over the last 8 years, we've easily reached out to more than 24 million unique people through our media campaigns.
Wow.
Okay, not really related to the topics of sex or romance, but what have been your most successful channels for reaching people?
Social. So we've really gone authentic, because I think social was built around this promise of community. And for folks who really honor it and respect that covenant, where there's a buy-in from that community, social still works. Sure, it's gotten a little bit harder. There's a lot more noise compared to Signal as it used to be. But if you still produce meaningful content that's built around your community, I think the community adopts it and really shares it. So social has been sort of that.
Very cool. And you also mentioned that you're now kind of moving from the in-person events to the online events. But what is your like in-person events look like, and how like what were the attendees like? How big was it, and what kind of things did you do?
Sure. So over the last 8 years or so, we would typically organize, I would say, 300 odd events, more than that. We've done things as intimate as 8 people, 10 people events where it's deep discussion, detailed agendas. These are thought leadership events, to mass events where we've organized, say, a concert, and we want to have narratives around music and what creative processes look like. And those have been as large as 8,000 people. So it's really been a huge spectrum, and each space is unique, and we have to obviously have a covenant, so to say. What do we do to each space that makes sense for our community?
Wow, that's such an impressive range of events. It's something that, yeah, it's really inspiring, to be honest. It's something I've thought about wanting to do in future. So it's so cool to hear that you've done like such a large range from 8 to 8,000. What? I have so many questions now. What? I guess the best one is how are you measuring? So obviously you're about empowering females, empowering LGBTQ, empowering everyone to kind of be who they are, express who they are, that it's okay. How are you measuring the impact that you've had?
Sure. So a bunch of ways. I think one is we also rely on our expert speakers who contribute to our conversations, because we also know who we are. Our job is a convener. We are really good at convening people, bringing people, creating a safe space where authentic exchanges can happen. Then we work with our partners, such as Breakthrough, or we've had also on the show Sangama. These are nonprofits who specialize in monitoring and evaluation. They can sort of then monitor directly what the outcomes were.
Makes sense. And then I guess I didn't even realize there were companies that did that. So to me, that's like such a nice weight off my shoulder.
If you want, I can give you a real example from one project we did.
Please, that would be amazing.
So we ran a small campaign where we took some transgender people and we gave them some soft skills training to allow them to move from blue collar jobs to white collar jobs in the formal economy. Just because of the support of soft skills training that they got, we supported around 24 such candidates, and approximately 18 of them got formal sector jobs. Now, 18 jobs were created just because we gave a small nudge of training and communication. So that's a real example, right?
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And can you break down a bit more what that training was? Was it just one session? Was it a longer period?
So that session was, again, with our partner, Don Bosco, which is a Jesuit school that provides training. They focused on everything from computer skills, language skills, grooming, interpersonal communication. And this ran for around 7 days over a week. And then we took those profiles and we shared it with another organization that has industry connections to enable the recruitment process. And once the connection was established, they got jobs.
Wow,
that's absolutely amazing.
Incredible.
I'm actually wondering, what is it like, the transgender situation in India?
Yeah.
Is it as well accepted as homosexuality, or like what?
Sure, it's more complicated because of more layers of identity, and the deeper the onion gets, the more you have to peel, the less patient we are to understand others. I've noticed that we always had this archetype or a stereotype actually of the transgender community, which we call hijra. And this is someone who was typically very poor, someone who later on identified as a transgender, hid it all their life. And this sort of stereotype has existed for at least 2 generations. They were ridiculed, they were not really accepted, they lived amongst their own. It was almost like a microcosm, a micro community of their own. There was zero integration. Now, what's happened since then is we're seeing these characters again break through into the mainstream, because now they're working at companies like Accenture, companies like Dell, companies like Deloitte. And once, again, privilege seeps into this community, it alters it. And it somehow encourages intermixing and appropriation and understanding between different strata. So I would say that community has also really moved forward a lot, both in the traditional sense, but also in this upward mobility that this community has seen. Because good employers, at least, now recognize transgender community as a really important community to hire from and upskill.
For sure.
I love how something seemingly as simple as learning communication skills, learning how to better present yourself is all it takes, or it doesn't take a lot. And that just this, it's so powerful, communication and empowerment, and what seems to be such, well, and is in a way, it's a very, going through a difficult time, community oppressed, and they're trying to empower them, and it's so amazing to see that you're being successful and that it's working.
It's simple and basic because it's presumed in our lives, right? For someone who doesn't have it, it's emancipation. So I think it's mind-boggling, right, to see this sort of dichotomy that exists in our heads and in our reality, and the two sometimes are at conflict. But the moment you nudge someone, that's all they need, right? Everyone wants to be seen. And that's it. When you empower someone, you give them a tongue in which we can understand them, they are empowered. Then they tell their own story the best they can.
That's beautiful. What would you say are the, sorry, I know I was just gonna, I want to say, what do you think what have been the most successful campaigns that you've ran?
So something recent one is something I'm really proud of. It's with the COVID era. So we ran On the Front Lines, which was really organic. And this is what I mean when the power of community comes together. I was having a conversation with a friend. He said that the civil sector in India was underrepresented in our popular narrative of what the problems are and what the solutions are. And he felt that they were excluded from this conversation of state, of commercial enterprises and all of that. And they needed a forum. We said we would build this forum for them. We went from idea to implementation in 3 days. We ran 15 conversations with Ashoka Fellows, Ramsay Magsaysay Award winners, really like luminaries in their own fields. Folks who've rescued 1 million children from slavery, right? Characters such as these. So we gave them a forum. We had this conversation on their individual topics, and over 3 weeks we've gotten close to 100K, right? Folks who've seen these conversations. We've also supported them in raising money. So we're still sort of figuring out how much money we've raised, but I would say it's definitely going to be tens of thousands of dollars. And that's something, that immediately came together.
Wow. I think when we started this podcast, we wanted to talk more about relationships and interactions with other people in order to empower people, right? And I think we've mostly been doing it up to now on kind of a one-on-one personal level.
Yeah. And
it's so amazing to see you taking that and exploding it into a proper business where you're not just helping one person, but you can help thousands and thousands and thousands of people, or a billion people. And I just think it's amazing.
Yeah. One person can change the world.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say to that, but I think
stop it.
We're trying here, and so far it's working. And like I said, there are enough people to help, right? So I'm just focused on trying to keep going, and hopefully the message gets there, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring it back to something you said earlier. You talked about a sexual awakening of females in India. And I'm not sure how much that relates to the rebrand of the republishing of the Kama Sutra, or if that's something separate as well. And I was wondering if you could shed a bit more light on what's happening with the sexual awakening of females in India and Bangalore.
Sure. So I'll just give 2 anecdotes and it will sort of become more apparent. Menstruation was taboo, this conversation never happened, I would say 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And then a person I know called Aditi Gupta founded a company called Menstrupedia, where she took comic books, illustrated them, got these comic books into government schools and got them taught as a program, as literally a subject, that everyone should know what menstruation means, because the moment you empathize with women and at least basic understand what their bodily functions are, other things start becoming more apparent. Things like domestic partner violence, things like intimate partner violence. Just, I think, respecting women at a whole different category improved because of a contribution she made. And this itself then leads to a sexual awakening, right? This also empowers women to say, okay, if I can have this conversation, maybe I can have other conversations. We are having now more conversations on topics, difficult topics such as marital rape. Marital rape was not even considered a crime in the Indian Penal Code because
Until when?
consent was implicit. So I would say as recently as 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So we have archaic laws from 2 centuries ago, and it takes time to break them down. I'm just glad and fortunate that my generation sort of is helping break down some of these walls. So that's one example. The other one is obviously the one that you mentioned, the Kamasutra project that sort of we did. Now that was essentially, to just zoom out, the Kamasutra is this cultural artifact from India, which talks about sex, which talks about pleasure, which talks about lust, all these sort of taboo topics now. And it's so strange that we cannot now have this conversation in the 20th, sort of 21st century, when we could have this conversation in probably the 4th century in India. So
exactly. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So yeah, in so many ways, I think we've devolved, right, from that freedom. And I think colonization probably had some things to do with it, probably, but it messed us up in many ways. So now I looked at that book, and it's a caricature, right? Everyone's busty, everyone's well endowed, everyone's like in an orgy all the time. And I was like, that doesn't sound like my life. So I was like, let's
but it should be.
Yeah, maybe I should just have my own porn channel. So I essentially said, okay, what can we do to provide more representation to things that are more current and real? But obviously I have this heritage, right, of this cultural artifact that I can actually borrow and steal because it's my own thing. So then we looked at, okay, what was missing? And we found everything was missing. Body shapes, right? Positive affirmation of body shapes was missing. Color, like skin color, right? Race, that was a missing conversation. Disability, that was a missing conversation. We noticed that ethnicity, right? That was a missing conversation. Homosexuality, the whole spectrum of queerness was missing. So we said, okay, let's take all of these, let's give representation to all these communities, because from the lens of Kamasutra, all of it is missing, and let's put a fun spin on it and add sex toys, because that's something I'm probably sure they didn't have compared to now. So that's what we did. We built it. We took a very artist-driven, creative approach to it because we wanted it to be consumed. So we got artists to make it almost superhuman, where the accentuation was not on the features, but on the imagery as a whole, so that we could escape eroticism. The point was to, eroticism is considered taboo, right? Not just in India, but in many, many cultures. So we had to go through that threshold to somehow make it more mainstream. And that's what we did. We gave it colors, we gave it a certain style that it felt more comic booky or artistic rather than a sex manual. And that allowed us to get more mainstream acceptance.
Okay. And so did you publish it as a book, or did you publish it on the internet?
So we tried both. Obviously, the ebook was much easier to do than the physical book. We keep getting requests to sell the book as a physical book, and it keeps surprising me. And I said, The PDF is there for free. Please download it. You're free to print it out if you wish. But we are seriously now considering again updating it, because we have a few more ideas on how to extend it, because we also feel we've just done a small slice of representation. We can talk about other things. And as we add more layers to it, I think it's reaching a size where it might make sense to sort of publish this in a print format and put it on Amazon, right? Get it really out there.
Well, you could do, how was it, Amazon not drop shipping, but where you just
Create space. Yeah. So print on demand, publish on demand. I think the logistics are the easy part. We've been hesitant because we feel like 32 pages isn't enough for a book. We need 100 pages. So we've already thought about the second edition, where we're actually going to talk about digital mechanics of love. So if the first phase was about representation, well, the second phase is about mechanics, right? Things that our forefathers didn't have. Example, ghosting. How do you deal with ghosting? Sexting. What is appropriate etiquette to sext? Even things like how do you, we speak so much about protection, right? When we talk about sex, but we don't talk about emotional protection. We talk about anatomical, physical protection. And that's such a huge missing area, right? We have so many people who are hurt for so long in their lives, walking around, if not sexually hurt, emotionally hurt.
No, for sure.
And
you both play into each other so much in your sexual and romantic lives. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we feel like these mechanics, such as ghosting, sexting, protecting yourself, even what is soft, how they say good touch, bad touch, but in a digital context, what does all of this mean? Because if you're a 16-year-old, this is not something you get in sex ed. You might know how to use lubricants or use a condom or whatever, but you don't know how to figure out if this person is bad for me, if this person is going to cause me depression, if this person is going to harm me in other ways.
But also not even just related to sex and the physical part. What we've realized, especially doing this podcast, is that so many young people today get all of their information from porn.
Yeah.
And porn is all about degrading women, coming as quickly as you can, and that's pretty much it. There's no mutual pleasure. There's no just happy satisfaction. There's no being there for being there. It's just to get to the end result. And
but then also there's no teaching about, like we spoke about this, like dick pics, like how guys are just sending them to women unsolicited.
You don't even know.
And I've
mass forwards.
Yeah. But like
it's like an Oprah moment. You get one. You get one.
You get a dick pic. You get a dick pic. You get a dick pic. Yeah, exactly. That's gonna be such a good little cut. I'll cut that up. Put that on TikTok or something. It's gonna go viral. But yeah, exactly. I swear. And one thing Sam and I have been saying this whole time is, communication solves everything. That we need to speak about it. But we're not being told this. We're not told, but having this book of example, I really want to read this.
I want to read it as well.
Sartaj,
and I want to sell it on our website. So let us know when it's ready to go.
Yeah, because explaining that if a person says this to you, they probably don't like you, or this is an example of a woman when she is interested in you, or
she might be uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, maybe don't do that. And all this stuff, I think that would be amazing, especially, because porn as well is so prevalent, and it's just unreal.
Like, I think we should make a sticker, like, consent is always sexy. And consent is always clear. But just to borrow off something you guys said, which is, Pornhub, I would say, is the Wikipedia of sex for most people. And the problem is it's institutionalized. So at least Wikipedia is crowdsourced wisdom or knowledge. Well, on these sites, you get propaganda. Right, and this propaganda is, like you said, based on patriarchy. It's based on queerphobia, homophobia. It's based on, I often think that the reason why these sites have a queer section is probably because oftentimes queer populations in some geographies are economically well off, they're very prosperous. There's a whole industry that's come out to support them just because it's an easy buck, right? Rather than actually caring about supporting their vision and their lifestyle. This communication gap, as you mentioned, right, it's critical, and it's not going to be filled from this direction. And the problem is, these spaces for this discourse also don't exist, because who are you going to talk to, right? Are you going to talk to your brother or sister or elder or whoever? But because if they are even within a 5-year age bracket, they've probably also used the same tool, right, to educate themselves. So they come with their own baggage, their own biases, and then you get infected with those, and it's okay. So one example which is kind of important is we had a movie this year on domestic violence where a wife divorces her husband because he slaps her once in a public space. And a big dialogue or a movie line that was really that took struck a chord with the nation was, it's not okay if he slapped me even once. That's enough. And I think this also communicates where we are, right, as a people, as to what our tolerance is, because women have always been repressed in many ways, physical violence being the most obvious manifestation of it. And now if it's permeated into our culture, which is like our culture of movies, which is, I would say, our biggest subculture, then it's also sort of striking this cultural zeitgeist of what's important for us.
Yeah. And it seems as well that movies are often quite sensationalized, and I guess one of the advantages of them is that they're fake and they're exciting and different, but a lot of the things that are shown aren't really like beneficial, and aren't like, you don't want to be showing people shooting each other and domestic violence and rape all this all the time. We need to see like positive examples of how like we should be acting.
But it's also giving us unrealistic expectations of what life is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime I watch a show, I'm like, that's not like anyone's life I know. That's not like my life.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What's going on here?
I thought you were living The Bachelor.
A little bit.
Just a little, just a tiny bit. We don't brag about it. We have to keep that low key. But I'm really excited by this. Where can we find the Kamasutra 2.0?
I will send you a link. We're going for an upgrade of our website and a few other things. Pride Month is also going to come on, I think, in June. Mm-hmm. So we were also sort of looking towards that. The COVID era has sort of unfortunately delayed some of our plans for version 2, but I'm hoping we can get to it soon and ship that also in 2020.
Nice.
And are there ways that people can help create
Yes.
2.0?
Yes. So we are trying to look for translators to get it from English into multilingual sort of mode. That's something we would definitely appreciate. And we have our style. Our collaboration style is we always want to collaborate with one artist for a version. So we're calling. So the first one was Kamasutra 2.0. The next one will be 2.1, right? Like software. So we are looking for artists who want to just give some of their time and want to give their artistic style or voice as well, because we think that allows us to be more inclusive as well.
Okay, and on that note, what would be the best way for someone to help you right now, Sartaj? What is it to help your organization, egomonk, and what can we do?
Involved.
And to get involved.
So 2 layers to that question. The obvious one is we're always happy to collaborate. We don't have all the answers. We love sometimes when people come to us with their challenges. Maybe we can help them. Maybe we can do something worthwhile together. So if anyone has even an idea that they want to realize, please just write to us. My email is sartaj, sartaj, @egomonk.com, egomonk.com. So would love to just get ideas. And the second part is, like, I'm at a life stage where I constantly think, am I doing something where if someone heard my name, they would pray for me, they would think fondly of me. They would have a positive recall of me. So yeah, that's it. That's what moves me right now. So if people did that, that would be great.
Amazing.
That's wonderful. Well, wow, like you are doing some amazing things for the world, and I'm so excited to now follow your journey. I'm so happy we got connected, and I'm so excited to read the book, but I'm also excited to see all of the work that's coming out from your organization. And I'm definitely coming to India.
Yeah.
Normally we have a lot of people and a lot of good food. I'm not sure if either of those things are true right now, but as soon as things go back to normal, we'd love to have you guys here.
Amazing. Yeah, we both love to come, and I'm definitely feeling inspired from this. I've actually been thinking this the past kind of week or so, trying to level up and see what do I want to be, how do I want to spend my time now. And I loved your point there, which was if people think of me, like what are they thinking of when they think of me? And you want it to be obviously a positive thing. And I think that's just hit me, that message. I think I will ponder on that for the coming days. But so thank you.
No, thanks for having me.
Cool.
And do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to share?
The only thing I can say is, right now, space is pretty tough for all of us. I think we occupy tremendous privilege. Folks in refugee camps, folks in shelters, folks who are less fortunate than us are struggling. If we can't help, directly with volunteering, at least, we should be more generous with our purses and donate to causes we believe in. I think this is once in a lifetime sort of moment from a tragedy. I hope at least we don't see this ever again. So yeah, kindness goes much further in today's world than it did a few months ago. So I encourage people to be kinder.
Wow.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for that message. We're feeling like, I think we're both we have like a little aura of like happiness right now.
Yeah, and inspiration and joy
and kindness,
peace and
just happiness.
Yeah, a bit lost for words.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for talking to us. We really appreciate it. And thank you for watching.
Yeah. If you viewers, listeners, enjoyed this talk, please feel free to like, subscribe, share.
Follow us on all the channels.
And
Sorry. I just zoned out then. I zoned out. I was too meditative and calm. Follow us on all the channels. We want to talk about everything to do with relationships, sex, friendships, but also
just relationships in general, communication, female empowerment, just everything. And we're so excited to have you on this journey with us, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Bye.